And welcome back, folks, to another episode of the Planet Mullins podcast. I have a fantastic jazz vocalist, educator, recording artist now, too, right? With me, who honestly, I had never heard of her, but, you know, it's a fun thing about this time of year during Grammy voting time that I get sent a lot of albums and a lot of people pop up out of the woodwork, and she's just an incredible talent. Please welcome Stephanie Letson. Hello, Stephanie.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on your show. This is a lot of fun.
Well, it might be. it might just be off of you. Man, I never wanted to hear from that guy ever again. He was awful. You know, I've done so many interviews. Did you ever have your students ever counted it up for you? I mean, about 4 years ago, one of my engineering students counted it up, and he said, "What year did you start teaching now? How many lessons did you do?" Right? It was 40,000 hours of one-on-ones.
My God. Oh, my God. Well, congratulations. That's amazing.
Well, it just means I'm old. But I'm also worth the money at this point, right? But I mean, you came to music first as a singer, or a teacher, or a student, and then how did you decide with all this? Because I know we're going to get into the college teaching and all that. How did you decide to move forward with your own project this time?
Well, you know, without going too far into the college teaching, you know, I've been doing recording with my groups since 2008, and I worked with Bill Hare, and he's a Grammy Award winning producer, but for us, he's a friend. And my husband worked with him. My husband's an educator.
Okay.
I worked with him. And so every year we're in the studio with Bill, and something happened when COVID hit. I think it happened to a lot of people that we all reassessed, you know, how our life was operating. And for me, I was spending way too much time doing the busyness of teaching, not necessarily the enjoyable wonderfulness of the teaching, but, you know, the college bureaucracy. And I said, you know, I want to do something for me. I want to sing and I want to ride a horse. And those were the two things I wanted to do in COVID. And so it just really started there. And by the way, I have bought a horse. So I have a horse right down the hill. And I called my friend Bill. I said, Bill, I'd like to just come into the studio and record some tunes, and let's just see what happens. And so we did. I prepared 5 tunes, went in with my bass player, Fred Randolph, went in with my first guitarist, Dave McNabb, and we did 5 tunes in one session. And it was a lot of fun, and it was really
great.
Interesting, at least to us, it was interesting. My husband and I listened back to those tunes, and there was a real difference between 3 of the tunes and 2 of the tunes.
Okay.
We were really straight ahead jazz, and you know, Shall We Dance, and I Hear a Rhapsody, and just really just jazz standards. And then 2 of them had a vibe. And I wasn't even conscious that they had a vibe, but they had a vibe. And my husband said, you know, you're doing something really different on these 2 tunes. And I listened to it and I thought, okay, if I ever did an album, I'd like to build it around these 2 tunes. So, you know, we finished mixing those 5, and my mind's swirling on it. And I thought, you know, maybe I'd like to do an album. So I called my friend Bill.
Okay. Hey, Bill.
And he said, why not? And that's really how all of this started.
Okay, well, you know, I'm thinking back to the early days when I was a kid watching TV, and I had never heard, until I watched Ed Sullivan, of a jazz singer that was riding a horse. It must be a really novel thing. So how did Bill manage to find room in the studio for the horse? That's what...
Well, you know, that would be a feat, because his studio is tiny.
Well, you know, It's interesting with the jazz world, though, is that don't you feel like there are a lot higher standards and a lot higher requirements for people like you and people like me that do a lot of live recording? I mean, I think out of my discography, I've made 10 live albums, and there's no editing in those situations. And then plus, you're working, in your case, you're working with a small group. It's like a quintet. Yes. And singing live in the studio. And it just bothers me to see what happened to vocal music in general with the auto-tune and then fixing all of these things all the time. And, you have to really be a schooled performer in order to go in and do it. And the other thing with jazz is that, I've made albums with literally no budget at all. Like I just knew that I was going to get in and do that. Yeah. And somehow I've managed to do it. But I looked a little bit at Bill's track record and stuff, and he's just a wonderful producer. So you chose these tunes, and then how did you come up with that amazing version of Lonely Woman? Because that's my favorite tune on the album.
My goodness. Well, thank you very much. There's a little story, at least for me, how I found it. I had a colleague at the college who I asked him if he would write an arrangement for my top jazzology. Okay. And I never tell them what I want. I just say, whatever's going to inspire you. And he wrote this really evil arrangement of Woman. I mean, it was evil. And I didn't know the tune. And so, I'm listening to the tune and I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this with 6 vocalists? This doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
So I started listening to other versions and came across the version that I recorded. And I would say of all of the tunes that I've recorded, that's the only one that I really followed a version that was already out there.
Oh, okay.
I didn't write that arrangement. I did transcribe it, but I didn't write it myself. I can't take credit for that, but I did, imagine how the guitar and the bass and the mellophone were going to work in there. So that was, us putting that together. But the tune itself, the story is just so haunting and so amazing. And I knew that when I heard that, I just had to sing it.
It's kind of impossible to do a 100% non-evil version of that song. Like, I'm thinking about the religious networks that are out there on the radio, doing all their happy stuff. And now Stephanie with Lonely Woman. Oh no, what happened? Right, because it's just, but you're right, it's got a real vibe to it. Now, your performing groups from the college, what college are you at?
I'm at Contra Costa College in San Pablo, and we have the distinction of being, I don't know if somebody has passed us, but we are the smallest community college in California, perhaps in the nation.
Okay.
And we serve an underserved population.
Wow.
We have students that come from all backgrounds, and they have challenges, they have struggles. And so we are a self-funded department. We raise the money. And so you get kids up to this level to do jazzology, that's just a real feat at our school.
Well, yeah, and I can imagine, at this point you got the grant for a horse for every singer. Haven't got that grant written yet. But, I think the National Endowment of Arts and Horses could probably be of some assistance with that. But with such a small school, I guess the upside is you get more time with each person because it's not that huge. I mean, some of these classes at UCLA and USC, it's ridiculous.
Yes, you're right about that. I think all colleges, or at least in California, I think we're all being encouraged to run a bit more like a business because that's just the state mandate of what's going on. So, Now, we all have minimum numbers that we have to have in our classes, but the nice thing is I've been at the college, this will be the end of my 25th year.
Nice.
I've been able to, if you will, build and craft the program in a way that I think really serves the students. It's a lot of time for me as an instructor because, you're constantly working with all the students. But
oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but to be able to have a 6-voice group is really a blessing. Mm-hmm.
So you guys are Downbeat Award winners as far as your vocal stuff. That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And then are you set up on a semester or a quarter system, or how is it set up?
We are on a semester system. So
okay.
I tell everybody that, they say, what is your job like? And I tell them, if you think about a football coach, that's what I do, except with horses. But, it's the same idea. You're constantly recruiting and you don't really know who you have until you get there in the fall. And so there's a whole lot of tap dancing when you go into the rehearsal.
Oh, yeah.
What literature is going to work for this group and how am I going to get this group to gel? And they basically have a year and then we start over the next fall.
Wow. Well, that's incredible because I noticed in all the years of my teaching that there are a lot of new challenges in the last 4 or 5 years, just especially with, the world situation and the internet getting more hostile and people being more dramatic. And all of those things. And most of the music that I've done has been instrumental. And part of it for that reason is because I didn't become a good lyric writer until about 5 years ago.
Oh.
Interestingly enough, lyrically, the songs of mine that have done the best are male bashing songs. I do really, as an old white guy, I write male bashing songs, and it's really fun. But, you probably have a lot to manage just on the personal side with these students because the world is kind of chaotic and fragmented right now.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I could go on and I won't. But, and especially since COVID, that was a real thing. But I do want to say that something that's really worked for us, COVID in many ways ended up being a blessing for our program. We didn't know it at the time, but we had to go online. We had to use Zoom. We had to figure out how to rehearse on Zoom, but also how to keep people engaged and involved because really we were online for, I would say, almost 2 years before we were allowed to go back into the classroom. And, it's got
to be really hard for singers, especially.
It was really hard, but emotionally it was hard.
Right.
And I would say that our students, I think the community that we built, we came out of COVID stronger. And the community of coming back into that classroom, and they are very much a team in there. They support one another. If one member has a problem, the other one is there helping them out. And musically, that has just, I think, created a synergy that's very special in our department.
That's so great. Well, do you guys do what some of the other colleges do, which is get together once a year and go to a foreign country as an exchange or anything? Have you guys done that?
We have. We just got back from Spain.
Wow.
In Spain, thank you, last May. And what was really cool, I'll give them a shout out, we traveled with the Lamar University Cardinal Big Band.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Rick. Oh gosh, this is terrible. Oh my gosh, it's a senior moment. Rick Condit, who's an amazing saxophone and clarinet player. And that was an amazing experience. It was, if you can kind of imagine the first day that we all meet, because we didn't meet till we got to Spain. And all of these instrumentalists are looking at these singers going, oh my God, instrumentalist. And so, that was basically the first day. And then, after the first concert, the second night, the trumpet section was sitting backstage listening to us, and we were, listening to them. By the end of the tour, they were singing our songs. We were singing their songs. It was a really cool cross-pollination.
Well, that's so great that you get a chance to do that. Now, back to your Grammy first round balloting. You're part of the FYC first round, which is not a nomination. So,
right.
You have to make it to the second round to be in that group of people, and then they pick the nominees later this year from that. But what a wonderful thing to have happen. How did that, and what's your category that you're in?
I'm in the jazz vocal category.
So best jazz vocal?
I'm going to say that I am not very, very knowledgeable. This hasn't been my world, but I believe it's up for jazz vocal album, best album.
Best jazz vocal album. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then, 5 years from now, we'll have best jazz album with singers and ponies. And we'll get a whole new category after you win, and then you become president of the Grammys. And nobody's allowed to use auto-tune and pop anymore. They have to be migrated to like a weird place in Siberia until they learn to sing correctly. No, it's never going to happen. Well, I'm so happy for you, and I'm so glad to get a chance to meet you. Do you have, as we wrap up here, do you have any advice for young singers or instrumentalists on how to pursue their career? Just anything brief. I mean, I know you teach full semesters of this, but a little cliff notes or some synopsis to wrap it up.
Yes. Thanks for asking. That's something that I don't think we talk about a whole lot. And I'll tell you what I tell my students. I tell them first, have a vision and don't limit your vision. If the sky is the limit, have the vision and then decide maybe how you can start to get there. Work with a mentor or a coach of some kind, whether it's in a school or whether it's a producer or whether it's you're apprenticing under an amazing performing artist.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think often is our vision maybe starts here, and then as we do the work, we hone in on what really is going to be our career. But I think that's the way to get there is to just say, I want to go there and not say, well, I'm not even going to try. Try and find somebody to work with.
That's excellent advice. My advice that especially now since COVID is I tell all the young people, you're not going to get a gig unless you leave your house. And they're like, I have to leave the house. And I'm like, you're going to even have to not be on Instagram for 15 minutes. Are you going to, how are you going to do that? I don't know. Let me text my friend and see how I do. I have no idea. So, all right, folks. Well, this is Stephanie Letson. She's a fantastic jazz singer. You got to check out her album, especially her version of Lonely Woman, which is the finest one I've ever heard of that. And she'll be, popping up on Facebook. You can find her on her website, which will be listed here in the YouTube. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Planet Mullins podcast. We'll see everybody on the next one. And bye-bye now.